Welcome everyone, Christine here with my campaign overview for Alberic de Bordeleaux, the Bretonnian legendary lord, who has always been considered something of a joke in the game, considering the fact that if you want a knightly lord, Lewin Leoncoeur was always there. Hell, we even got our pawns. But he's at the moment in Warhammer 3, they have changed things up quite a bit because of his starting position. So now he starts over here in Lustria, and he actually has quite a few advantages in his campaign at the moment. Let's look at his faction effects and his legendary lord effects. He's immune to high seas, reef, and storm attrition. He gets recruitment duration of -1 for Bretonnian knights, income from ports plus 50%, recruit rank +2 for Bretonnian knight units. So it's all those kind of benefit to knight units. He gets melee defense for peasant mob, men at arms, and spearmen at arms. Kind of pointless because you don't actually want to use that. And then 10 melee defense for Knights of the Realm. The thing about that is that while that's good, you're still probably going to want to use questing knights during the course of your campaign. Because questing knights, even with the extra stats, will just perform better in melee. The armor piercing helps them out when it comes to the difference between them and Knights of the Realm. It is an important distinction. Like, Knights of the Realm are better at an anti-cavalry role, questing knights are better at the anti-infantry role, and they're better in a siege situation. Then we're looking at the special skill line. Well, let's talk about vows. So he starts with a knight's vow, but you obviously want to get that questing vow unlocked as quickly as possible. In order to do so, you either need to win a siege battle in a desert or jungle climate, or win a battle at sea, or defeat a legendary lord of Ogre Kingdoms, Beastmen, Greenskins, or Dark Elves. Your best bet is to get the desert or jungle siege battle, because you will have one in this campaign pretty quickly. You also should want to get this to tier 3 as quickly as possible. Not necessarily for the knight units, but rather to get that extra paladin going in your campaign. You also want to get the fields over here when it comes to your economy. So yeah, you want to get those vows very, very quickly. You get hit points, hold the line as an ability, leadership R effect, construction cost and construction time for ports. This can be useful if you gain a lot of ports, of course, because it can be expensive to upgrade them, and you do have some available next to you. Then you get tradable resources produced faction-wide, always important for your economy, construction cost and construction time for those resources. And then you improve the commandments. So Peasants Duty gains 10 growth, 5 control, and 3% income. So pretty damn powerful when we're looking at that. The extra control doesn't really matter. The growth in itself also doesn't matter, because you have amazing levels of growth as Bretonnia. It's actually so absurd. Like, you start with a tier 3 settlement that has 60 growth. That's one of the highest in the game on any settlements, and it's a minor settlement. So your growth is really not an issue. The income benefit, however, is of course pretty useful. And then you get Blessing of the Lady. Then you also get the Foot Squire benefit, and you also have a Flying Mount option. So overall, fairly solid skill line, though some of the stuff doesn't necessarily feel like it's worth it when it comes to some of this stuff. Like, just the commandment benefits are just like, okay, the income, I'll take the income, but do I need the control and growth? Not really. I'll grow my settlements. It's one of the issues of Bretonnia. Now, in terms of starting position, it can be the kind of starting position that screws you over if you follow it in the wrong way. Let me explain this very quickly. So you start over here. There's a Lizardman army on this side. You defeat that Lizardman army. Obviously, you also want to unlock the vows. You want to get Pledge to Chivalry for this guy, and then eventually go for the siege battle once they're level 5. But here's the thing about Alberic's starting position. Obviously, he gets access to the royal stables pretty quickly. Not great to have it in a minor settlement, not great to start in a minor settlement, but certainly he'll be able to defeat these guys. The siege battle over here is going to be a bit of a problem, but you should have enough units, especially if you start getting archers. I wouldn't necessarily recruit too many knights errant, maybe just the first turn. when it comes to it. This is the kind of start position where it might be beneficial for you to take a bit of your time before just diving right in against the enemy. Then again, if you can take the settlement very, very quickly, that would be good. Now, here's the problem with his start position and the way you want to play this campaign. So on that one hand, the logical path the campaign wants you to go on is to take this settlement over here and then take this capital. Okay, no problem. The issue is what comes after, because then you would want to eliminate this lizardman faction over here and take this particular settlement. Again, not an issue. The issue is what comes next, because this province is not a province you want to get. Let me explain why that is. If you're playing on a high difficulty, the AI is obviously biased against you. So if you're taking this provincial capital, which obviously is an unpleasant climate, it's going to mess you up. Now, you probably do want to take it, because siege factions are just annoying when it comes to their changer of way mechanics. So just eliminating siege factions should be a priority if they start next to you in any particular campaign. However, by taking this province, you're obviously exposing yourself to Rakarth and the Bloodhole Coven. And you don't want to end up fighting them. I mean, you could defeat the Bloodhole Coven, fair enough. But if you have to end up dealing with Rakarth, I'm going to tell you straight up, Rakarth is a pretty unpleasant situation. And even if you defeat him, the position you're going to be in your campaign is not one you want to be in. So maybe what you do is you come over here, right? You take this provincial capital, you take this settlement as well, you sell it to Marcus Wolfhard, and then you take these two settlements as well and sell them to Wolfhard as well. Let him deal with the Dark Elves. Now he hates Lizardmen, they hate him. So when it comes to this campaign, you could decide to fight against Marcus Wolfhard, though he can be a decent enough ally in a campaign. Like, you can either fight with or against Marcus Wolfhard. When it comes to the Lizardmen, aversion isn't so strong against you, but if you're making an alliance with Marcus Wolfhard, then it won't necessarily end well for you when it comes to relations with the lizards. On the flip side, of course, you have the alternative of making an alliance with Gorok. So the alternative to what I just stated is you take all of these settlements, right? And then you take this one, and then you sell all of it to Gorok quickly. And Gorok obviously is going to end up in a war with Marcus Wolfhard. You might want to advance north then and deal with the Bloodhole Coven. But if Gorok, or just take some of Wulfric's territory, or completely ignore Wulfric, just don't get involved in the whole affair. If Gorok wants to end up in a war with Wulfric, that's not necessarily something you have to care about. So it might be in your best interest until that settles itself for you to ignore the situation here. Or you take these elements and just force march on Marcus Wolfhard, though that's not ideal because you're removing a potential enemy against the Dark Elves. But it's really up to you how you want to deal with the situation, or you could ignore this minor faction core, just take the siege ones out, or even ignore the siege faction over here. Though Changer of Ways can mess you up. Siege likes to troll players, so I generally would prioritize taking them out. But you could just advance over here, get the peace agreement, and ignore everything else here, because you do want to actually advance east. One of the reasons you want to advance east is because one of your quest battles does want you to take Sartosa. Now, there's other benefits in going east as well. Because of your campaign benefits, you actually want to take ports. Now, you don't have any particular territory you need to take. Yeah, now your skill tree is the regular Bretonnia skill tree. It's not the Crusader skill tree that Rapunzel does have in her campaign. But if you come over here in the Jungle of Webs, you defeat Luther Harkon. You certainly have the army for it. The only thing Luther Harkon has in his army is his artillery. And in my experience, the Vampire Coast doesn't necessarily recruit a lot of artillery. So you come over here, you take all this territory, you wipe out Luther Harkon, and then you cross the sea and you go after Arkon, who's likely going to be at war with Rapunzel and the dwarves as well. So he's going to be vulnerable. You probably land at the port, or if you want to land next to his capital, you can do so. You take them out, you take over this entire territory. You can confederate Rapans for obvious reasons, so you probably want to do so during the course of your campaign. But what's important here is if you can take these territories. Archon will do very well on a high difficulty, less so on lower difficulty. So on lower difficulties, Rapans might wipe him out. If that's the kind of situation you find yourself in, one advice when it comes to diplomatic dealings with AI, you can get a lot of diplomatic benefits by taking the Great Desert of Araby and selling it to a faction because it's highly valued by the AI. But more often than not, when you arrive here, Archon will put Rapans on the back foot. And you might even benefit by just taking like this capital, getting peace agreement with these lizardmen, and then force marching over here, crossing the ocean as quickly as possible to try and defeat Archon as quickly as possible to save Rapans from the situation she's in, and eventually getting the Confederation. And from Rapans' territory, you can march over here to Sartosa, and then start making your way to Bretonia. Taking Astalia can be great as well, because there are free ports over here. There's another one over here. Of course, dealing with Ekekla, dealing with all that situation. But Alberic's journey should not necessarily be a constant, non-stop campaign battle against the forces of Lustria. You might want to decide to abandon Lustria entirely during the course of your campaign. It actually might work in your benefit in a lot of ways. That's what I'd say about this situation. Because because this particular part of the campaign map would be really beneficial to you, the Land of Assassins, maybe even conquering all of Khemri or all the jungles here. Like, with the major problem being, of course, that Kairos tends to become a really powerful AI faction, and you would not necessarily want to encounter him. But there's obviously benefits if you were to take Khemri or portions of this map, though it can also be pretty brutal as well. You do have uninhabitable climate and wasteland. It would be more beneficial to make your way to Sartosa to take all the ports that are available over here. You do have a quest objective to do so. And then march your way into Bretonia, and get confederations along the way with research. Like, I would always get the water pumps first 30 turns, but then start working on the unification of Bretonia when I'm playing their campaigns. That would probably be your best campaign plan, but of course you do have other choices as well. What you decide to do is really up to you. You're not necessarily bound by any particular territory. You can fight, you can certainly stand your ground against the factions here. Just bear in mind the situation in Lustria that will happen on Legendary is that the Lizardmen will win the situation. So if you're allying Marcus, do expect a hard fight. And Gorak is not necessarily the kind of faction you easily defeat. If you want to fight the Lizardmen, you kind of want to rush Gorak. But of course, then you're going to have to deal with Karf on your own. And Dark Elven AI can be a bit insane when it comes to it. Anyway, that's all. Costin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.